Good morning, guys. Have you ever wanted to read a book, but maybe you just didn't have the time to, you know, finish it? Maybe it's for a college project, or maybe you're a reader and you run into some boring parts of a book. I think this will help you. This is my method of speed reading. Now, I do know how to speed read, and I'll just briefly give you some information on that in case you want to be a particular speed reader. But this is for those that read a lot, and maybe this will help you in your reading better. Okay. I kind of got spoiled, to be honest with you, because I am a big reader of the Bible, which is like the greatest book ever written. So sometimes when I read other books, if I feel like they're getting like, boring, I just, I don't need to hear how somebody picked up the rose petal and put it on the ground and walked 2 feet. I want to get to the heart of the story. Sometimes I just want to enjoy reading, and I want to enjoy every word. But first of all, this is a library book. If you want to know how many words you read for a minute, what you're going to do is you're going to take a page of a book. You're going to count each word, and then you're going to take a timer for 1 minute and then count the words that you read. And that will show you, and you can do the regular exercises of speed reading to get faster. Now, here's one of the more professional ways of speed reading is basically they take off the two ends of the two margins and then just read kind of through the middle, okay? And then sometimes they'll see if they're comprehending everything and then just go and read even less. And then some people read this way, through that middle, with the finger as the guide. I find as I'm older, that gets kind of annoying to use my finger. So this is my method. Pretty much what I'll do is I will read, for the most part, I'll read every word in a book. But if I'm reading through a book and it kind of like, say I'm at, towards the end, and it's like, it's getting like just super boring and it's just a bunch of fluff, so to speak, and I just want to get through it for some reason. At that point, or say I'm in a store and I want to see if I want to buy a book. I'll do this too sometimes. So at that point, what I'll do is a couple different methods. Sometimes I'll just read I'll start off like this, reading as fast as I can, and then I'll just kind of let my eyes do it, which works sometimes, but it doesn't always. But by moving your finger, you're forcing yourself to read fast. So sometimes I'll go like this, okay? And then sometimes what I'll do is I will read like the first line in every paragraph, like kind of like, into that in every paragraph, okay? So I'll go through the book and I'll just like read like the first line in every paragraph just to see if I can get it. And believe me, you will get the gist of what the story's about doing that. And then sometimes what I'll do is I will like just read like a paragraph on each page. Sometimes I'll read a line on each page. And you might think, well, how are you comprehending it? But you will. If you've read, usually the beginning of a book will kind of set the outline of a book. So you're going to kind of want to read that. And then after that, if you get it, if you have to read a book, say you have to read a book for college and it's just a fluff book. What you can do is just read the first 2 chapters, and then you can kind of read through the book like this. And read a paragraph on each page, or flip through and read a line on each page. And you will see that you will comprehend. And if there's specific things, like say, I might be reading a book. This is typically how I speed read a book when I run into speed reading. Because I do enjoy reading every word in a book. So what I'll usually do is I will read everything I can, and then all of a sudden, if I get to a part and I'm like halfway through my book and it's just a bunch of junk so to speak, that I'm not interested in reading, I'll just start the speed reading. I'll go like this, and then I'll start reading like a paragraph or so and see if it's, like I'll read fast like this. I'll show you quickly. I'll go like this, and then I'll kind of speed read with my eyes, and I'll say, oh my goodness, it's still pretty boring. They're still having tea at the cafe and with her sister, and it's getting really boring. Then I'll start like reading like I'll read a line here, a line here, and a line here. Then if it's like, oh my goodness, this guy's just really dragging this out, this author, so to speak, then I'll just say, okay, I'll read a line on each page and go like this. And then I'll get to the part I want to read, and I'll say, oh, good. Now they're back to the scene I want. And then I'll start reading one line at a time. But this helps me at times if I have a stack of reading that I really am into, and there's a bunch of junk in the book that's wasting my time, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're never going to get through it. And usually I'll end up getting to that place, like say at the end of a book. Like I'll be like almost done with the book, and I'll be like, oh my goodness, they're just dragging it out. They already said who did this and who did that. Now it's a bunch of dragging on. At that point, sometimes I'll just kind of try to get through, stop if I see something I want to read, and then just get through to the end, because I don't know if authors have to do so many pages to get paid, or what the point is, or they're just going up the ladder of, they get to the climax of the story, then they go down. But sometimes I'll run into that at the end of some books, not all books, but for the most part, because, I just want to let you know, I do love to read every line and every page and get the whole story. But there are those books that you run into for whatever reason that you just like have to read, want to read, or thinking about reading. This is great, especially if you go to like a bookstore and you're thinking, do I want to read that book? I mean, you can just go through the book like this. Oh, kind of read it quick, like, I didn't like that story. I can tell already it's not for me. This works great for moments like that. As far as personal reading, not something I would necessarily recommend to enjoy reading. I mean, I would take the time to read every single word, every single page, even if it's boring, to kind of get through it for personal reading. But once in a while, you do run into a book that for some reason you've been dying to read, and it's not exactly what you thought, but you still want to read it. Instead of just abandoning the book, you can kind of read through that. That way it's like, okay, I know what that story is about. I have that one there, and put it aside, and then you read it, and you didn't have to go through the agony of, oh, this is a horrible, horrible experience for me. I'm not enjoying it. It's just super boring. And then you can move on to something that you love, And that's what I'm doing right now in my book reading, is I am only reading what I love. I used to do a lot of book reviews, and I love doing book reviews. And sometimes I've come across stories I would never have read if I didn't do book reviews. But then there are times that I had stacks of books that I never would have read in the first place if they weren't book reviews that I did. And basically, wasted my time, super boring, weren't well written, but I read them. I'm not saying all books on book reviews are like that. I'm just saying that there's some books that, are like that. And I prefer, at this stage of my life, I'm 57, that when I sit down, it's like, oh, I've got my hot reads. So right now I'm loving going to the library to pick out all those books that I've been waiting to read forever because I just didn't have the time, and I'm retired now. Or books that an author, like this is a James Patterson book I'm reading right now, that I wanted to read, because I was, like most of us, you work most of your life, and then when you retire, you have more time. But I hope this helps you in your reading. I hope it encourages you. If you're not a reader, maybe this would be a method that you might start that might encourage you to read. This might be something that you might want to pass on and help your kids with, because sometimes they have to read or do a book report. And I mean, I remember reading The Grapes of Wrath in school. I was a reader, but, not all kids are book learners. You know, one of the things that I always loved about homeschooling is they kind of tailor homeschooling to your child. Now, my kid, I started homeschooling him, but he was a public school kid. He did good, he was social, and that was his spot. But some kids, that's not their place. But homeschooling, like I said, somebody can say, I fix a train or I could fix a truck, but I'm not a reader. Is that kid any smarter than the reader? Just different, you know? Just different. Everybody has their own talents. But anyway, if you get a kid or you yourself are not a reader, that's a good way to say, you know, maybe I'll try reading some books and give myself a mental vacation, and then you don't have to go through the agony, so to speak, because you don't like to read, not your thing. But if if you are a reader, you will love it because you can say, oh, I can read more books. I can read things I enjoy, and my reading is so much more enjoyable because I am doing this. Now, with that, there are better ways, meaning more technical, more elaborate ways of actually getting yourself to speed read and to comprehend everything that you're reading. But for the most part, I think this is a lesson for life. Most of us don't need to comprehend every single word of every single book that we read. We just need the gist of it. And sometimes when you're in college and stuff, you know, you could even read the book, the whole book, and you might, you know, if you're not a reader, you'll be reading pages and be droning out in your mind and be thinking about other things. So this method might work for you anyway because you'll find yourself going back and saying, I couldn't find the answer to that. I got to go back and look. So, you know, speed reading might help you to find the answers too. You know, college kids and stuff. So it's a good, I think it's an excellent life skill. So like I said, I knew a little bit about speed reading. It wasn't really the way I wanted to do it. I just figured that's not really, I don't care about comprehending every word. I mean, yes, I got the gist of the whole story, but I don't have to know that Sarah went over to the table and put down a glass of milk and then she went to the refrigerator. You know, you know, like I said, unless it's enjoyable reading and I'm really just sitting down enjoying, but if it gets, like I said, if you get into a book and it's like pages, like this much pages of fluff, that's where that can come in handy, and then you can get to the meat and potatoes of what the story is about. Okay, with that, like, subscribe, please share this video with a friend, or two or three, and remember, big or small, you too can be a backyard farm.